I'm 69 years old, and last fall I realized something that honestly frightened me. It wasn't a health scare or a financial problem, it was something far quieter. One Tuesday morning, sitting alone at my kitchen table with my usual cup of black coffee, I understood that the most dangerous habit people have doesn't look dangerous at all. It slowly steals years of your life while you believe you're simply waiting for the right time. My name is Arthur Bennett, and I live in a quiet neighborhood outside Louisville, Kentucky. Most mornings here are calm and predictable. Around 6 o'clock, the street slowly comes to life. A man across the road backs his pickup out of his driveway. A woman walks her golden retriever past the mailbox. A school bus stops at the corner every weekday like clockwork. But while I sat there watching the neighborhood wake up, a thought crossed my mind that I couldn't shake. After nearly 70 years of living, I finally understood something most people never realize until it's far too late. The habit I'm talking about is waiting. Waiting until things slow down. Waiting until life becomes easier. Waiting until the timing feels right. And while we wait, years quietly pass by. I didn't always recognize this habit in my life. In fact, I learned it when I was a kid. I grew up in a small town outside Evansville, Indiana, in the early 70s. My father worked at a tire factory for nearly 30 years, and my mother ran the front desk at a dentist's office. Our life followed the same routine every week. My father woke up before sunrise, poured himself a cup of coffee, and read the newspaper before heading to work. I remember asking him once why we never took big family trips like some of my friends' families did. A classmate of mine used to talk about driving to Florida every summer, and it sounded like the greatest adventure. My father smiled, folded his newspaper, and said something that felt completely normal at the time. He told me we would travel someday once things settled down. I didn't question it. Adults said things like that all the time. Life always seemed to have a future moment when everything would finally become easier. When I was 23, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, after getting a job at a regional distribution warehouse. The company handled shipping contracts across several southern states. It wasn't the kind of job people dream about growing up, but it was steady work, and the paycheck showed up every 2 weeks. Before long, my life settled into a routine that barely changed from one year to the next. I drove the same highway every morning, parked in the same gravel lot, and spent my days coordinating freight schedules and delivery routes. At first, I told myself the job was temporary. Back then, I had plans. I wanted to travel out west, see the deserts in Arizona, stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, maybe even drive along the Pacific Coast Highway someday. But whenever those thoughts came up, another thought followed right behind them. Not now. Work is busy. Maybe next year. Time has a quiet way of slipping away when those thoughts become a habit. By the time I was 35, I had married Rebecca Collins, a middle school librarian with a calm voice and a dry sense of humor. We bought a modest house just outside Nashville where the streets were lined with maple trees and every driveway had a pickup truck or family sedan parked out front. From the outside, our life looked stable and comfortable. Rebecca worked at the school during the day while I handled shipping operations at the warehouse. In the evenings, we cooked dinner together and watched television in the living room. Rebecca had a quiet dream of visiting Yellowstone National Park one day. She used to talk about the mountains and geysers like they were something out of a travel magazine. Every time she mentioned it, I agreed with her. I told her we would go someday. But that word someday kept moving further away each year we said it. Life became a long list of responsibilities. The house needed repairs. Work demanded longer hours. There were bills to pay and problems to solve. Every time we talked about traveling, I convinced myself it made sense to wait a little longer. It felt practical and responsible. Looking back now, I realize that's exactly how the habit of waiting works. It disguises itself as maturity. It makes you believe you're doing the smart thing by postponing what really matters. When I was 48, my father passed away from a sudden heart attack. After the funeral, my mother handed me a small cardboard box she had found in the back of his closet. Inside were travel brochures and folded maps he had collected over the years. There were pamphlets from Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming, along with an old brochure for Yellowstone. My father had quietly saved information about the places he hoped to see someday. Standing in the church parking lot with those brochures in my hands, I felt something heavy settle in my chest. My father had spent his entire life waiting for the right time to travel. That time never came. I wish I could say that moment changed me immediately, but habits built over decades don't disappear overnight. I returned to Nashville and slipped right back into the same routine. The warehouse expanded, my responsibilities grew, and months passed without me noticing. Rebecca still talked about traveling sometimes, usually on quiet Sunday evenings while we sat in the living room. She would mention national parks or the idea of driving across the country. Every time I told her the same thing, "We'll do it when things calm down." I believed it every time I said it. Then something happened that forced me to see time differently. Rebecca started feeling unusually tired in her early 60s. At first we thought it was just stress from work, but the doctor visits became more frequent. Eventually we were sitting in a small hospital office, listening to a diagnosis neither of us expected. Illness has a strange way of changing how you see time. The outside world continues moving exactly the same, but suddenly the future feels much shorter than it used to. One evening we were sitting on the back porch watching the sun go down behind the trees. Rebecca looked at me and asked quietly if we would ever see Yellowstone together. I told her we would. I meant it when I said it, but deep down I knew how many years I had already spent postponing it. Rebecca passed away less than 2 years later. A few weeks after the funeral, I was going through her dresser when I found a small notebook tucked under a stack of sweaters. Inside were handwritten lists of places she wanted us to visit someday. Yellowstone was at the top of the page. Next to it, she had written a small note that said, "Maybe after Arthur retires." I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time staring at those words. We had both believed there would always be more time. Earlier this year, I finally made the drive west we had talked about for decades. I packed a bag, filled the tank of my old Ford sedan, and spent 3 days crossing states I had never seen before. When I reached Yellowstone, the air smelled like pine trees and cold mountain wind. I walked to the edge of a ridge where the mountains stretched across the horizon. For a long time I just stood there quietly. The strange thought that crossed my mind was this: that place had existed my entire life. The only thing that changed was how long I waited to see it. I'm 69 now, and the realization I had that morning at my kitchen table hasn't left me since. Most people believe life falls apart because of dramatic mistakes or terrible decisions. But the habit that quietly steals the most from us is much simpler. It's believing that the right moment will eventually arrive. The truth is that life rarely slows down enough to give us perfect timing. Days turn into years while we keep promising ourselves we'll start living once things settle. And by the time many people realize that truth, they're already standing where I am now, looking back and wishing they had stopped waiting sooner. If this story made you pause and think about your own life for a moment, then maybe it's already done something important. Sometimes the biggest lessons don't come from dramatic moments, but from quiet realizations like this one. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more reflections like it, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And remember, some of the best parts of life shouldn't be saved for someday.